name is Rafael, you're watching Rock and Roll Garage, and today we're going to talk about the 20 singers that Mr. Bruce Springsteen, the boss, listed as the greatest of all time. But first, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your comment below. Tell me what you think, if you like this list or not. Well, back in 2008, Rolling Stone magazine chose the 100 best singers of all time, and they asked for a few famous singers to vote. And they later on they shared these singers lists, and one of them was obviously Bruce Springsteen. And today I'm going to show you Springsteen's list. So let's start. On number 20, Mr. Joe Strummer, the Clash vocalist and guitarist and main songwriter, certainly one of the greatest punk rock artists of all time. And not only punk, because the Clash was a punk band, but they had so many other influences that made their music quite unique, I would say, and Springsteen really likes the band. So I think it's a very interesting pick. You're gonna see there's quite a few surprises on this list, people you would never expect Bruce Springsteen to list. So let's continue. Number 19, one of the greatest blues artists of all time, Mr. Howling Wolf, who certainly changed the course of blues music forever. Certainly one of the coolest voices of all time. You know, that raspy vocals, you know, that it's not a coincidence that his nickname was Howling Wolf, because what a voice he had. So a really interesting pick. Number 18, now a really soft voice, a beautiful voice as well, Mr. Smokey Robinson, who was listed by many other people, like, for example, Keith Richards. If you haven't seen Keith Richards' list, you can go here or below the video. And he was obviously the founder and one of the frontmen of the Motown group The Miracles, and had many other hits during his career, also as a solo artist, incredible musician. And number 17, not only certainly a beautiful voice, but a brilliant songwriter, Mr. Brian Wilson, the mastermind behind the Beach Boys, one of the brothers of the band, and just an incredible artist who really changed the course of music. I mean, the Beach Boys even inspired the Beatles. I mean, how many bands can't say they inspired the Beatles? And one man that can say, I inspired the Beatles, Mr. Brian Wilson inspired the Beatles. And number 16, another incredible artist that tends to get overshadowed, maybe underrated, who is Sam Moore, who was part of the great duo Sam and Dave. So many hits, so many beautiful songs and melodies these two guys created. And Sam Moore also has many interesting things that he recorded on his own. And Sam and Dave was active from 1961 to 1981, and they're suddenly one of the greatest duos of rhythm and blues and of all time. So certainly a great pick. And we reached the number 15, one of the greatest artists of all time, Mr. James Brown. Not only a great artist, a great songwriter, but a great performer on stage. I mean, James Brown was really one of the top 3 frontmen of all time, I would say. He inspired simply Mick Jagger, who is certainly one of the greatest. And I mean, it's no wonder he has a song called Mr. Dynamite, because he really was a dynamite on stage. What an incredible singer and songwriter, and obviously the godfather of punk rock, funk music, and certainly one of the major figures of the music in the 20th century. And we reach number 14, who is Darlene Love. She's a popular singer and actress, and she was also the lead singer of the group The Blossoms, and also recorded as a solo artist over the decades. And we reach number 13, Mr. Elvis Presley, the king, and he is probably in everybody's list. I would say most of the people who Rolling Stone shared this list, and obviously he really changed, although he wasn't a songwriter, let's say, that much, because most of the songs he recorded were written by other people, but he really gave them a special touch and bring that kind of music to the masses, and really kind of start it all. I mean, although he wasn't, I wouldn't call him one of the godfathers of rock and roll. I would say Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and many others were, more than Elvis, but he certainly bring that kind of music to the masses, and maybe rock and roll music wouldn't have been the same without it. And we move to number 12, Mr. Hank Williams, one of the most important country musicians of all time, certainly. One of the most influential American musicians of all time. So, as you can see, Bruce Springsteen has many different influences, because he really already listed people from many other kinds of music genres. And number 11 is someone you would never expect, I would say, Mr. Johnny Rotten, or if you want to call him by his name, John Lydon, who was, I'm sorry for that, it's raining here, and Mr. Johnny Rotten, who was the lead singer of the Sex Pistols, and then formed his own band, Public Limited Image Limited, right, PIL, which is a very good band as well. He's really a great songwriter, I would say, and a great performer, certainly. I mean, the energy the guy had, especially in the early days, it's just amazing. And we reached the top 10. Number 10, Mr. Orbison, certainly one of the most underrated songwriters of all time, I would say, and singers. What a great voice he had. And he was also part of one of the coolest supergroups of all time, the Traveling Wilburys, which also had George Harrison, Tom Petty, Jeff Lynne, and Bob Dylan, obviously. So we go to number 9. Number 9, Van Morrison, the Northern Irish singer, songwriter, guitarist, who certainly was a very important part of the British and European rock and roll, I would say. You know, what an incredible artist he is, and he really has a really interesting discography, not only on his own, but with his previous bands like Them. So, great pick for sure. And we reach number 8. Number 8, Mick Jagger, obviously, the Rolling Stones vocalist, and not only an incredible vocalist, but an incredible songwriter, an incredible performer. I mean, he's in his 80s and he is dancing like 20-year-olds can't dance. I mean, he's giving it all, certainly, and one of the greatest frontmans of all time, for sure. And number 7, the killer, Jerry Lee Lewis, who was not only an incredible artist, but probably one of the first rebellious figures in rock and roll music. I mean, when you tend to think about a rebellious person, a rebellion artist that has that image, you tend to think about someone with a guitar and etc. But he did that on the piano. He was the wild man on piano, and really an incredible performer back in the early days. And so many great songs and important songs for the development of rock and roll music. And number 6, another really important artist, one of the godfathers of rock and roll music, Mr. Little Richard, that Bruce Springsteen also mentioned it, on this list, who certainly was one of the greatest artists of all time, who inspired countless bands, including the Beatles. I mean, those high falsettos and that way of screaming inspired Paul McCartney, for example. Paul McCartney does the same thing as Little Richard's in many songs. And we reach the top 5, who is the late legendary Aretha Franklin, who curiously was on the first position of Keith Richards' list. She is certainly one of the most important female singers of all time. She's certainly probably on the top 3, I would say, at least in mine. And she was really an incredible artist that really inspired countless musicians and singers over the decades. Number 4, the first Beatle on the list, Mr. John Lennon, who really is one of the most important artists of all time, not only singers, guitarists, pianists, I would say, you know, he did it all, and obviously one of the greatest songwriters of all time. Without him, you know, the Beatles wouldn't have been the same, the music would have been the same. What a great solo career he had. Tragically short, and it's really sad that he left us too soon at the age of 40 back in 1980. And we reach the top 3. Number 3, Mr. Bob Dylan. And you may say, well, Bob Dylan doesn't have a great voice, he's not a great singer. Well, it depends on your taste. I really like Bob's voice, like I like John Lydell's voice. You know, it's a different way of singing. I don't think that singing a great vocalist is not like the American Idol or X Factor kind of great vocalist with a beautiful shining voice. I mean, someone who has a raspy voice like Howling Wolf. Howling Wolf is an incredible vocalist. Bob Dylan, Eddie Vedder, I mean, you name it. So many great vocalists that doesn't have that beautiful shining voice like Mariah Carey, let's say, you know? It depends on your taste. I agree with Bruce. And number 2, let's say what about a beautiful shining voice, Mr. Sam Cooke. You can't say he had a bad voice because his voice was really brilliant. But another one, obviously he was the king of soul and sadly left us too soon, and could have given us much more. And that's the one Bruce picked for the 2nd position. And number 1, the artist that Bruce Springsteen thinks is the greatest vocalist of all time, Mr. Ray Charles. And he certainly was a fundamental part of music history, really changed it all. And thankfully we had him on the music business for many decades, and he sadly left us about 20 years ago. And he preferred being called Brother Ray when he was often referred as the genius, and he really was a genius. What an incredible discography he gave us. So many incredible music he left, and it's just great. And that's it. I hope you liked the video. Please like the video, leave your comment, tell me if you agree with Bruce's list, and let's talk about it. And if you want to read more, you can go to the description, read the article we wrote about this, visit the Rolling Stone page where this list is, and let's talk about it. Okay, thank you for watching, and I see you later.